Good evening, welcome to Fil-Am Showtime. I'm Nes Dangilan. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we are very fortunate. We are here in San Jose, California, actually Milpitas. And with us, ladies and gentlemen, is a very well-known personality, mostly in the area of San Jose, but of course is also known here in Milpitas. And he is an activist, he is a doer, he is a builder. Ladies and gentlemen, legendary Mr. Ben Menor. Ben, welcome to Fil-Am Showtime.
Yes, it's my pleasure. Thank you for visiting me, and of course we're here at Seasons Marketplace at Landis. It's the first Filipino mall in the United States, so I'm so glad that you can bring your station here and bring it to your audience, and hopefully many of your viewers can come and visit this wonderful place. It's one of a kind, and we're in the famous Max's restaurant, famous for its chicken, and hopefully I can treat you to that.
Well, thank you very much. Wow, so this is a historical place actually. This is the first one that ever built,
one.
the first seafood.
No, first mall.
First mall, okay.
Yeah. And
okay.
so when we say mall, it is in-house.
Okay.
So there's others that are called strip mall, where the stores are outside, but this one is a complete indoor mall with over 30 merchants and products and services.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much. Again, Ben, it's an honor, and the reason why we're here actually is exactly Mr. Ben Menor. So we just want to talk to you. Your name has been mentioned many times, not only in Anchorage, but actually it's all over USA because of the things that you do. And one of my dreams is to be able to sit down next to you and to interview you, and actually an in-depth interview to find out who is really Ben Menor. Now, Ben, I know you've started somewhere. Tell us a little bit how Ben Menor, or how did the Menors got here in San Jose?
Let me begin by saying that there is another more famous Ben Menor.
Really?
And that's, I consider him, because of family name, Uncle Ben Menor, and he was the first elected public official in Hawaii, and then of course became the Associate Chief Justice of the Supreme Court in Hawaii. So I just want to make sure that your viewers don't get me mixed up, because I have been mistakenly identified as my uncle, and people would say, gee, you look awful young, because at this time my uncle passed away in 1990, but he'd be about 90-something years old by now. So no, I come from a strong legacy of Filipino Americans, and especially with the Menor last name. And my father came here in the late 20s as one of the Manong generation, and he, like the father of my uncle Ben Menor, they came here to be recruited to work in the plantations of Hawaii before Hawaii became a state in the late 20s and 30s. Unfortunately, my father could not handle the high use of pesticide in the plantation, so he came over here to the mainland and became a service worker in the business of hotels and restaurants. And then of course, during that time, Filipinos in California could not marry outside their race. It was called the miscegenation law. So he stayed single till he was 35, until the war broke out back in the Philippines in World War II. There he had an opportunity to go back to become, we call them now, our second generation of, the generation of heroes. And he went with General MacArthur and took back the islands from the Japanese occupation. And there he met my mom in Leyte. And so he fell in love with my mom. She was 18, he was 35. And then, of course, I was born in the Philippines with my two older sisters. And I came here when I was 5 years old. And we were able to settle first in San Martin, south of San Jose. And then eventually my father bought a home through the GI Bill in Palo Alto. And there I was raised, went to school, and so on. And I stayed local to go to, what's funny is I got recruited to play football at a local junior college. I was the only Filipino on the football team. And then, of course, I went to UC, University of California, Santa Cruz, and I studied there, community studies, community development, media, as well as education. So that's sort of in a nutshell that experience. And then of course, for whatever reason, people ask me, my years of 40 years of nonprofit services, right, came from my experience of growing up brown in America, and the difficult times and struggles that all of us were going through during the 50s, 60s, especially during the civil rights movement. So I think that shaped my way of how to look at things, and my relationship with the Black Americans and Latino Americans who also were struggling to have their self-identity and their self-rights in being in this, wonderful country, but more important, to fight for the American dream. We had to fight for the American dream.
All right, before we go to those American dreams, well, it's so nice to know your father actually is one of the Sakadas that came to Hawaii, and so many stories about the Sakadas coming here, and here you are here in California, in San Jose, and now we're talking about the American dreams, and obviously in your younger days, you went through many hardships there, trying to identify yourself with the majority of the people there. Tell us some of the instances that happened that you could think of at that time, where right now it's a no-no.
When I came here, I spoke not a word of English, and yet I had to immediately get into the school system at first grade. And there we were sort of, I know I was punished when I spoke my dialect. And I can remember...
Which, by the way, you are Ilocano.
Ilocano,
okay,
yes.
That's where your father is from. What part of the Philippines now?
He's from Ilocos Norte, Pauay.
Okay, all right.
Ilocos Norte.
All right, very Ilocano. So here you are, a young Ilocano kid.
Young Ilocano kid. Even picking tomato cherries in my uncle's farm, but going to school and not knowing a word of English. And so I was relegated to the back of the room. And if I said anything that may not have sound English, my hands were whacked with the ruler, being punished for not what I call participating in the English language. And then, of course, being ostracized by my white classmates because I did not fit to the mainstream Americans.
This is interesting. Were you one of those kids that as they grow up, the parents did not want you to speak the dialect because, for some reason, they want you to speak English? Were you like that too?
It wasn't so much my parents wanted me to only speak English, but they wanted to do what the school wanted them to do as far as parenting me, meaning that the school was telling my parents, talk to me in English and not in our native language. So it was imposed upon us by the educational system to assimilate me to the fastest degree by eliminating my use of my language.
So all this experience that you have gravitated you more to do something for the community, and you went to a prestigious university, UC.
Yes.
Okay, with what degree again, if you don't mind, Ben?
Yes, I graduated with the degree is community studies, but it's a combination of sociology, political science, with some psychology in there as well.
And you did not go to sports like basketball to become another Jeremy Lee or something like that?
Oh, no. In fact, no. It was sports that helped me break the color line.
Really?
The glass ceiling. It was my excelling in sports that got me accepted into the inner circle of the what I call my white classmates. So, and because of that, I also was recruited to play sports in college. And it was a big thrill to have this opportunity because remember that I'm only 5'9" at that time, at 175 pounds, competed against players that were 6'3", 6'4".
Basketball? Yeah.
No, this was football.
Football, okay.
So that's worse.
Yeah, that's even worse, yes.
But I played first string throughout my high school and first string in my first year of college. And then I only went for 1 year because during that time it was a traumatic time in American history. The Vietnam War was going on, social unrest was going on, and I got captivated in the civil rights movement. And so I stopped playing sports to get more involved in fighting for our rights.
All right, and again, this is the time where you are seeing lots of things are happening within the community because of experience. Now, how did you get gravitated into doing something for the seniors? Because this is what we want to talk about. Because of Ben Menor, for the first time, I don't know if it ever happened in any other states here in the United States, but in San Jose, and it was a buzz around, including Alaska. We've heard about a man named Ben Menor started a Filipino-American Senior Center involving funding from the municipality. Could you tell us something about that?
Thanks for the compliment. I'm humbled by the fact that you think that way about me. To me, it's just another part of my upbringing from my mom and dad to always serve the community, and especially to the elders. So even as early as when I was in junior college, when I was given the opportunity to run a Filipino Asian Studies program, that we said many of our families, parents, did not get a chance to go to school. So what I did is I asked the college to include the senior citizens. For the first time, a community college was providing services to older Americans, mostly Filipinos, through English. So we would bring my mom and dad, my aunties and uncle, we would bring 30, 40 of them into the classroom where they'd never been in college before, and they were being given language skills. And to them that was a big thrill, because here they are in a major university. To them it was a university, to be in a classroom and being given the opportunity to learn how to speak English from professors of English. So, and that's my beginning of working with the seniors. Although in my later time in UC Santa Cruz, I wanted to study more about the struggles of my father. So we would go and learn about the farm workers, Filipino farm workers. Keep in mind that the farm workers movement was started by two Filipino Americans, or at least two, Philip Veracruz and Larry Itlong.
Larry Itlong, yes.
And I got a chance to meet both of them during the time when they were striking against the grape growers in 71, when I actually was invited by my Latino activist friends to go down to Delano and bring food to the strikers. And there I heard for the first time this charismatic, very loud, and very what I call righteous Philip Veracruz. And that was the inspiration to saying, that's my model that I would like to be.
Well, that's very interesting, because Larry Itlong and Philip Veracruz, they're both Ilocanos also.
Yes.
They have this Ilocano blood. But let's go back to you, and I know you're always humble. And again, ladies and gentlemen, my very special guest is no other else than Mr. Ben Menor, as I've said, an activist. He's a doer and a builder. And we're going to talk about that part. You were at that time gravitated again, as we talk, to the seniors, because you see that there is a need here.
Yes.
What made you think of building a home for them?
It started, and that was part of my degree, is that community studies is being a community developer. And so one of my classmates, Joan Cordova, wrote it down that in 1974, I told her that sometime in my life, I want to build a senior housing, because I saw that many of our Filipino farm workers who lived in dilapidated conditions, both in Market Street and in Kearny Street in San Francisco, to the Campos in Stockton and Watsonville, that many of these aging and retiring farm workers and service workers lived in dilapidated conditions. So it would only be fitting that I find a way to service them by giving them a place to live, a place where they could feel very proud of themselves. Plus, when I was doing my research in Seattle, I got a chance to study under now the great Bob Santos. He put me out in the field to study the International District of Seattle and interview many Filipino Alaskarans, the ones who went to Alaska
Yes.
to do the salmon, right?
Yes, yes.
So I got a chance to meet them, and they told me about looking in their room, and they've been living in those rooms, those apartments, for 30, 40, 50 years. And I saw the cracks and the paint peeling off, and the beds were sinking. I said, you know what? No one should live this way, especially for those who have given their life to America, either in the fields where they grew the vegetables, or in the Alaska canneries where they provide food for us, as well as those who serve in the military. No one should have to live in these conditions.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Some of our younger generation don't realize what you guys went through and what those manongs and manangs that we had that went through. And to have somebody like you open up your eyes and say, I got to do something about this, at least start in San Jose. It must have been a hard struggle for you to get started. You probably said, and discussing with Joan Cordova, which, by the way, I had the chance to interview her also, and Bob Santos, I interviewed him also. Okay. And for you now, which is, I really am very excited, at that time, you probably ask yourself, how am I going to start? How did you get, it's just like playing chess, how did you get to that part wherein this is my move, this is where it's going to get started?
Part of, and thank you for that question, because to get started in my studies was partly political science.
Okay.
So political science was the driving force to bringing change. So in order to bring government to open up its doors and its coffers, because that's the only way you can receive the kind of funding that's necessary to build senior housing and community centers. I mean, the Filipino community was not a rich community at that time, and even now it's still considered not well-to-do in some of the other ethnic groups. So I knew that it was going to be a political effort. So one, you had to build community. Second, you had to build numbers. Third, you had to direct the resources, of whatever resources the Filipino community had financially, to invest in its community, which is not an easy thing to do. We are very family-oriented, but not necessarily community. Yes, we'll build a small clubhouse, but nothing to the point where it would make an impact in, say, senior housing, except for places like the Dimasalang House in San Francisco, where that was done by the first generation, the Manos. But the second, third, and fourth, they haven't quite caught on to that. If you go to all of the different centers in the United States, most of them were built by the first generation who came to that area. But the second generation, the third generation needs to step up. They need to interact and be active and to pay homage to those who came before them, who paid the price in paving the way so that the American dream can be achieved through the sacrifices of those who came before them.
And the second, third generation, which of course you are part of those later generation, and you were the one that opened your eyes. Now you got these things going. Did you get the full support of the community when you first got started, or like what you said, you gotta get a solid community before you can start talking about, floor plan, whatever. How did you able to do those things?
The first thing that was necessary was to build the trust of the seniors, my manos, or I call my aunties and uncles. And because I worked closely with them and I did whatever they asked me to do, they believed in me. So they opened their arms to allow me to be part of their, we want to have a place that we can live in. We want to have a place that we can enjoy our lives. And that's how it got started. And then, of course, the second was to involve the rest of the community. That was a challenge because to build the center that I wanted to build with housing was very grandiose. And of course, Filipinos think big.
Yes.
But when they want to execute, unfortunately, we have also the mentality of Ningas Kugong. We start with a big flash, and then we just sort of
Then it just die
out.
Did you have, excuse me, did you have a hard time getting the community? How many organizations did you have to unite and say, okay, it's a good idea? Or did you get most of them or some of them, or just say, well, I go whatever I have?
I would say that at that time we had about 50 Filipino organizations.
50? That's
50.
a lot, yes.
Yes, and now we have over 85.
Okay, did you get the whole 50 when you said
I believe we almost did. And I say that because we had we call Filipino American Council. And I was the president.
Oh, okay.
And so I got them to accept the idea that by being together, working together, we can achieve greater things, including helping people to run for office and to get elected. And because of that, we got some of our friends to be elected into office, and because of that, they were then returning a favor by giving us the support and means to build the centers.
All right, now you got the support of your colleagues. How did you approach the mayor? Did you have a meeting with the mayor? The community had a meeting with the mayor? How did this all got started?
Because of my background in political science,
okay,
and working with the Black community and Latino community, and also working with the Cesar Chavez and the United Farm Workers Movement, I learned some things from those experiences. Is that you negotiate your requirements and demands before you give away your support and your vote. So I call it the art of negotiation.
There you go. Did you have the architect then already? You have already something implemented before you do all these things?
No, we wanted to establish the mayor's position that the Filipino needed a larger center and housing. Once that happened, then we went and received funding to do the pre-development, which would be to do the renderings and some architectural drawings, and of course, looking for the funds to achieve completing the project.
Well, thank you very much. Again, ladies and gentlemen, my very special guest, Mr. Ben Menor. As I've said, he's the activist Filipino-American. He's a doer and a builder. And let's talk about now the senior center. How many units, do you still remember how many you got started with? And tell us about the senior center.
There was a challenge in the fact that we were just proposed to build a center.
Okay.
But in the master plan, it required the master plan. We found that there's a high need for senior housing, so we included senior housing with the community center on a property that's only less than 2 acres big.
Oh, yes.
In the heart of downtown San Jose. So it was going to require some very special skilled individuals to build such a project on such a small property. And we did. So we achieved building 105 units, 95 units that would house 110 seniors, plus a community center that was 16,100 square feet of for the community, that would include services for seniors, children, and families. And what was important to the Filipinos is they had to have a place that they can enjoy themselves dancing. So I built a multi-purpose room that can seat 300 people and have a theater for 600 to watch cultural shows. But more important, we can open it up so that you can have open dancing for 400 people.
Wonderful. Now, on the seniors, the rental units, do you have it subsidized so they can afford? And how much? What's the cheapest that they pay?
The project.
You remember? Yes.
The senior housing was built with several different levels of funding. One of them was a Community Reinvestment Act funds from the banks. We got funding from the state and the city, and so the housing was directed for affordability. So it was below market price. So for a studio at that time cost $350 a month. For a one bedroom, it would be about $450 to $500, and two bedrooms would be $650. And of course, it would grow. It may go up a little bit because of the market price.
That's affordable. Utilities included.
Yes.
Wow, that's beautiful. Now, you did mention about the community hall activities. That's a bonus. Do you have recreation, or is that a retrospect that you wish you've done?
No, there was recreation that was
For
part of the
basketball and
master
things
plan. Recreation means from dancing to choir singing to folk dancing to cooking and learning how to use a computer. So we were one of the first centers that not only taught seniors how to use the computer, how to do Word, Excel, all of those things, but we saw that when the seniors went back to their apartment, they didn't have nothing to use, to work, to get online, to communicate to their families back home using email and so on. So then we decided that we would give scholarships and we would get reduction of cost of computers. But we didn't give the seniors their computer. We had them build their own computer.
My goodness.
They knew CPUs, hard drives, RAMs, and so on. So they actually built their own computers.
That's amazing, Ben. What you've done really, I don't know if this is being done in any other states, but what you've done is incredible. Incredible is not even enough. And I really admire, and I'm very honored to meet you. Now, I just want to know, how is everything happening now at the senior centers?
Well, let me back up a little bit,
Yes.
because it's a very proud moment for Filipinos and Filipino Americans. When we built that center, and I spent hours on end dedicating my time with my architect and my builder to build the very best. And so when you see that the housing, it is not like other senior housing. This looks more like, they call it hotel rooms, because they're designed to give it a level of quality. And then that senior center also had an exceptionality with colors. All the colors were researched, so that those colors in there were colors of the Philippines.
Yes.
Okay, and then the artwork that's there showed the art of the American dream. And we use stained glass, where you see the stained glass reflecting Christian and Muslim cultures being jointed together. But most important, and it was a shock to me, we were nominated to see about receiving an award for our work. And so we were just happy to get nominated for the Builders Association of America. Well, guess what? Not only did we win one award, we won 2 awards, and they're called the Gold Nugget Award. So I would say it was so rare, no one remembered anyone in San Jose ever receiving those awards, and especially 2. So those facilities were the best of the best among architecture and design and building.
Well, thank you very much again, ladies and gentlemen. My very special guest, Mr. Ben Menor, as I've said, an activist, he's a doer, he's a builder, and an honor for Fil-Am Showtime to be here in California, Milpitas, to be able to interview him and present him to you. Now, Ben, I know that we have lots of viewers out there watching and seeing you tonight. Do you have any special advice, especially to our younger generation now that's watching?
I'm hoping that I'm a 1.5 generation, which means that I was born in the Philippines, but I grew up here in the United States. So I'm more like my son, 2nd generation. And like my son, he's taken on the legacy of his grandfather to carry the work that he started in building the path for future generations so that they can achieve their American dream. Yes, my son is very successful in his art and his photography and his work in the community. He's well respected in every aspect, but most important that we point out earlier, he's most respected among the elders. And that was a very important part of his upbringing, is to understand and appreciate and respect his elders to the highest degree. And that's why in the end, the next generations have to be the future caregivers of our community. They have to be the ones to do what is possible that I'm not able to do, so that our Filipino community can shine and rise to the very best, so that we can have the next generation of, Tim Lexicon or Jeremy Lin or Coughlin, the 8 gold medalists in swimming. So
Not to mention Roman Gabriel.
Well, Roman Gabriel was
back.
our first Filipino in professional football.
Yes.
In the Los Angeles Rams. What? Nobody's going to say Los Angeles? They had a football team. But the whole point is that we have so many talented and so many outstanding second, third, and fourth generation. But us elders need to make sure that we've done the proper shepherding, that we've given them all the opportunities, including stepping back. Sometimes our Filipino culture hoards our young people from going forward because we baby them, we over-nurture them, we don't allow them to make mistakes and take risks. And so we need to make that happen, and I think when we do so, I think then that we're going to be able to see more centers and more facilities, and it won't be just centers. Hopefully it'll be like a 30-story edifice that we can say, wow, that's not the Trump Tower, but that's a Filipino tower.
Ben, thank you very much. You are a great man, and really looking forward to maybe coming back here and see more of the activities you're doing in your senior life.
Ness, thank you for yourself and your family for coming and visiting here in Milpitas. I thank you for visiting Seasons Marketplace. It is one of a kind right now, but that's the whole goal. We want to make many of these. When we have many of these, it will show and reflect the strength of our community. And keep in mind, this mall was produced by the investments of Filipinos from the Philippines. So we have to appreciate our contemporaries who from the Philippines are coming to the United States and investing in, say, us, the Filipino American, because they believe that what we're doing here with their partnership, we can increase the achievement of Filipinos in America as well as back in the Philippines.
Well, thank you very much again, Ben. And there you are, ladies and gentlemen, our very special guest tonight, Fil-Am Showtime, Mr. Ben Menor, the legendary Filipino American of San Jose. Thank you. And let's go to the next segment of our program.